Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. It's Wednesday. It's Light 'em Up Wednesday. Time for another live show, time for another inspiring conversation, and it's time for another panel discussion to talk about the state of the industry, to talk about what has been, what is, and what will be. We're a week away from the second Cigar Christmas, the second large trade show of the year. Intertabak in Dortmund is upon us, and to talk about the show, to talk about the global cigar market, to talk about some of the dynamics and the evolutions in the global cigar landscape, I am delighted and honored to welcome our industry expert panel with manufacturers, tobacco people, distributors, in particular retailers, to look at the industry from all various angles. We'll have people on and off joining us on the panel here, but I'm particularly delighted to welcome my good friend and fellow from Austria, Johann. What a pleasure to have you with us, as always. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Good to see you, Reinhard. Good to see everybody on here on the show.
Johann, for all of you who don't know him, is one of the most accomplished cigar importers and distributors that I've personally met all over the world. He does an incredible job here in Austria, most certainly taking care of such household brands as Arturo Fuente. Speaking of, here with us, as always, the one and only, the Professor, Jose Blanco. Thanks for joining us, Jose.
Always great to be here, even though some people that are here today, it's kind of shaky. But for the rest, I think everybody's good.
We try our very best, Jose. It's good. It's good to see you. I can't wait to give you a big fat bear hug next week in Dortmund. I'll spend some time with you at the Intertabak, but thanks for taking the time. I know you have a busy travel schedule ahead of you. I'm leaving very early morning for Geneva as well, but it's always important to take a little bit of time to come together here and spend some time together discussing the ins and outs of the industry. So many thanks for joining us.
Always.
Also, all the way across the pond from sunny and cozy, warm Las Vegas, Vlad joining us live here at the lounge to give us a bit of a US perspective on things and share some of the ins and outs of the market over there. Vlad, what a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Reinhard, I've told you this multiple times, and I'll repeat it again. You've done such an incredible job with this, and it's always a pleasure to listen in or join when I'm lucky like this.
Well, thank you so much. I thought you were about to say that you hate my jacket, but that comes.
No, the jacket is fantastic. And for those who are joining us, I mean, I thought he did it on purpose to match the background. It is incredible.
I said I'll call it the chameleon look. I'll just disappear into the background. No, thanks for the wonderful words and for the warm words. Yeah, indeed. It's been a couple of years here at the Light 'em Up Lounge. You joined us early on. Jose was there, I think, ever since we started, and the same for Johann. So I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the panel. Claudio Sgroi will be with us in just a second as well. But in the meantime, let's get things rolling. Let's get this show up and started. Jose, I want to start with you. Here we are, September 2023. We had an incredible year already in the cigar industry, even though certain ups and downs, certain dynamics that are truly interesting and might have certain people worried when it comes to sales and the growth. But we had a tremendous win with Judge Mehta's rule. I think it's already a month ago, and things look bright and truly exciting for the premium cigar industry. What's your perspective on everything that's happening in 2023 so far?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation and for many people that I've known here for years. I'm glad that you brought that up because you're going to see a show on Sunday that we had with Michael Copperman where we're going to talk a lot about what happened. And what I don't understand is with this win I still see some consumers, some retailers, and some companies that have not realized how big the win is. And all the credit to the CRA, and of course the PCA did their job, but it was the PCA and 10 family-owned companies that put up $600,000 to win this. Because the majority of people that I talked to during the years, no, it's a lost cause. We're not going to win. You can't beat the government. It's not going to happen. A lot of companies, big, medium-sized, smaller, retailers, no, it's not going to happen. Well, guess what? 10 family-owned companies put up the money. They got Salini, whatever, can't remember the lawyer's name, and George Mehta ruled in favor of us. It was a great battle that we won, but that said, we haven't won the war. And like I've said on many podcasts, I expressed it on social media, Facebook, Instagram. People have to start putting aside their egos. People have to start putting aside their personal agendas. There's people that are only seeing the tree in their backyard. Yeah, you want to say hi, Holy? Jasper says hi in all the shows.
Hi, Jasper. Lovely to see you.
Yes, you can close it. So like I was saying, people are only seeing their tree in the backyard. And what people, consumers, retailers, companies, doesn't matter the size you are, have to start seeing the forest. United, we are stronger. But if everybody has their own agenda, if some people think they know more than anybody, it's not true, because we're facing the government. And what's really important, because I interact with more than 60, 70 countries all over the world. They've asked me what impact you think this could have. I'm not going to say it has a huge impact, but if a lot of distributors and a lot of the active people in the country start looking at what we did, we might have a chance in other countries to consider that cigars is 100% tobacco. You could take it to any lab in the world. And even the glue that we use for the binder and the wrapper, it's a sap from a tree. Don't mix us up with the vape. Don't mix us up with cigarettes, because we are a very small industry, which, by the way, 95% of the manufacturers are family owned. 87% of the retailers in the States are family owned. And without the manufacturers, without the retailers, but more than anything else, without the consumers, we would not be here where we are today. So that's the only thing I have to say about this. But the reality is that we have to keep together and we have to all unite.
Absolutely. Jose, I couldn't agree more. And a wonderful and important opening statement. As far as the market dynamics are concerned, we on the last panel discussion that we had, we spoke about some of the numbers. We spoke about the plateau that we seem to have hit in the US market, but internationally there's still a tremendous amount of growth and very positive signs from all various ends of the world, Southeast Asia, most certainly the Middle East, Africa, Europe even. You have the ear on the ground and your finger on the pulse all the time, traveling extensively. What's the general consensus? What are the sentiments that you're feeling and the feedback that you're hearing from the retailers that you visit, the importers and distributors you're talking to, and of course from the end consumers?
Look, the reality is that many lives were lost with COVID, but pre-COVID already you started to see, mainly in Europe, a change with consumers. First of all, I don't like to talk about the Cuban situation, but when you're paying 40, 50 euros for a cigar and it doesn't draw, I mean, come on, it's just crazy. So that has given the opportunity to a lot of people to smoke cigars from Nicaragua, some from Honduras and Nicaragua. So they're realizing that it's a totally different taste profile. The cigars are, I would say, 95% perfectly constructed, age. You're picking up a cigar, you buy a box of cigars, 25 cigars. Probably the 25 cigars are going to draw well, they're going to taste well. But also, we have to take in consideration the impact that social media has had worldwide. Shows like this, our show, Coop, Eric, Dojo, Bear. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching these shows. But there's also a lot of podcasts, that only have maybe 40, 50 people, but you got hundreds of those, and all those people have followers. And the majority of them do a good job. People interact with them. So what I think is that people have realized that, and the comparison that I do is, before, if you didn't drink French wine, you were not drinking wine. Well, guess what? Now when they have the tasting, California, New Zealand, Australia, Italy, Spain are beating some of the French wine. So you have to have an open mind, and you have to have an open mind, and you really have to look into the future and how things will definitely have changed, are changing, and will continue to change.
Jose, I would love to just go back to the important win that you mentioned at the beginning very briefly. What's your opinion as to, are most of the people that you meet aware of what actually happened? Because it seems that in the inner circle of the industry, we discuss this a lot, and people keep talking about that very important fight, the most recent win. But at least in my humble opinion, whenever you meet with end consumers, it's less prevalent or maybe less talked about. And that leads me to the other part of my question as to, why do you think it's still so hard to get consumers involved in either signing up to the Cigar Rights of America, Cigar Rights of Europe, Cigar Rights of Austria, you name it? There's so many great platforms out there that all work towards the bigger goal of protecting our rights and helping all of us to continue enjoying handmade premium cigars. Yet it's such a tough uphill battle, it seems, to get people involved, even when that Damocles sword is pending on our heads. Why do you think that is, and what could we all do better in order to get the people involved and help and support that cause?
When I was very young, and I don't think anybody, maybe Ian is old, but anybody remembers when we were kids, there was a program in the States that says that's the $64,000 question, because the money has devaluated so much. Now it's the $1 million question. And you're right on point. You cannot imagine, since the ruling, how many times have we in the industry, I have brought this up, and I don't see the excitement, even with companies that are going to benefit about this, talking about it. And I talk to consumers and say, you got to talk about it, you got to write about it, you got to tell other people. This has been the greatest ruling, the greatest judgment for the cigar industry in the last 20 or 25 years. And we are not celebrating it enough. And you are absolutely correct, 100%. Now, what can be done? To be honest, I've broken my head over this. I remember when CRA started, and I would go around. I used to travel 37, 38 weeks out of the year. And every time I would go to do an event, the first thing I would ask people, how many people are members of CRA? A lot of people will say, what is CRA? Then you have to explain what it is. And maybe we would get 1 or 2 people to sign up, because I don't know what it is with people. Because look, one of the true pleasures in life is smoking. To me, the cigar industry is the greatest industry in the world. So why would you not be part of it? And why would you not defend it? I wish somebody here would have the answer, because we've been talking about this years and years and years. We've even done the analogy of the NRA the NRA is so strong in the States because they defend the Second Amendment. So I think the smoking rights for people should be the Second Amendment of the people, and we should defend it. My 2 cents.
Your word in God's ear, Jose. Vlad, over to you. What's your thoughts on all the points that Jose just made, and also in general, looking back on the year so far, looking back on the trade show in Vegas in July when we saw each other, and what's your thoughts as to the state of the industry here in September 23?
So I agree with everything that Jose has said. The ruling has been a massive win for the cigar industry, and it truly has not been celebrated adequately, I believe. The other thing is, and we were trying to pass something in Nevada, for example, July 1st, we actually got the cigar tax capped at 50 cents. It's still 30% of wholesale price, but now it's capped at 50 cents. And the idea that we wanted to run, which kind of really surprises me that none of the PCA or CRA or any of the other industry groups have not done that. We were going to set up iPads throughout the 10, 15 shops that are in Vegas and just have people sign up, send an email to their representative. Super simple, super low buy-in, gives you a little 30 seconds kind of bullet points of what it is you're sending, what are we trying to do. That alone, because as Jose mentioned, it is a very fragmented market in a sense that it is primarily family owned. So you need to get the buy-in from all the shops individually, and they actually need to be behind it. So if they can do it, they need to be educating the consumers as well as us. So everybody in the chain should be educating the end consumer, because ultimately it's protecting their rights and keeping us in business. Aside from the actual win, which I think was obviously massive, there's another one that's open until, I believe, 6th of October. The manufacturing, a law that they're trying to put in place that concerns primarily manufacturers. And even if you just read it, it is incredibly limiting, incredibly detailed. And honestly, I'm more afraid of that than the FDA's, than what FDA was proposing. Primarily because I don't think the smaller factories, which is probably most of them, will have the resources, the means, the knowledge, or anything else to actually make it compliant so you can export stuff to the United States. And I would love to hear Jose's opinion on this, because he probably has better insight than I do. That I think is right. That kind of wraps up the judgment, and then the upcoming challenges. As far as the numbers, you mentioned the plateau. I don't think people truly realize how massive of a jump it was. Basically, we went from 317 or 320 million cigars sold to 410, which is, doing ballpark numbers, it's about a 30% growth, but it's a 30% growth on 300 million cigars. So that is quite a massive shift. And I'm sure Jose could probably, if we go back in time, the cigar boom, if I'm remembering my numbers right, it only went from like 8 million cigars to 18 million cigars, like year over year. And I'm talking about the 90s, right? The cigar boom in the 90s, which again is massive, right? You're having more than 100% growth, but numbers wise, it only went up by 10 million. Now we've had a 10x compared to that 10 million number. And I do think it plateaued a little bit just because the growth was so massive. 2021, obviously, well, 2020 and 2021, for different reasons, obviously experienced a lack of inventory, supply chain issues, all kinds of things. So retailers would stock up when things were available. So they would, I don't want to call it overextend, but they would really just, build their reserves. And then there was this perfect storm of between travel and really there was a lot more disposable income because there just wasn't enough stuff to do, right? You had closed movie theaters, closed restaurants, like air travel was relatively limited, all kinds of other stuff where you couldn't spend more disposable income. And the flip side, and again, this is anecdotal, not that I'm saying like all of the people that suddenly found time and they can sit on the patio like I am to enjoy a cigar suddenly decided to buy 70 boxes, a month. But I've heard this story multiple times between 2020 and 2023 that people have said, hey, I've always wanted to spend more time enjoying cigars. I always wanted to invest more. I always wanted to learn more. I couldn't do it. I was in an office 9 to 5. I have, 2 kids and family. Like, I don't have the time. But guess what? Now they can work from home. And if they're outside, the kids are at school, that suddenly frees you up. And as long as you're getting the work done, might as well enjoy a cigar with it.
Vlad, do you feel that things have finally kind of like normalized, after that tremendous spike in the growth? Yes, we might have hit a certain plateau, but obviously at a much higher level than we were pre-COVID. Do you feel that the industry, at least in the US and from your perspective, has found sort of a balance again and a new normal post-COVID?
I think so. So one of the things that I saw during that time, which is kind of reflected in a broader sense, right, between the stock market. And again, this is very US centric. The stock market went through the roof. The NFTs, the cryptocurrencies, everything just went through the roof. So basically, it just looked like whatever you do, you couldn't really make a mistake, which kind of happened where you had a lot of new brands pop up, which is super exciting. But then everything sold. It didn't matter how good, average, exceptional, or anything in between it was, it sold. So at this point now, I think both the retailers are willing to gamble less. There was a little bit of jitters, I want to say, in the start of the year between the economy wasn't looking as good, and I think we are due for a little pullback, which might impact business. Because again, ultimately, this is a luxury. And I think that's probably the spending that gets cut first, right? So I think there might be a little bit of a pullback. I know that from talking to plenty of retailers, they have adjusted their buying habits. They have adjusted their inventory levels, their cash flow management. Obviously, all of these pivotal things when it comes to business, right? Like things that are absolutely critical if you're running a business properly. So whether or not we've hit a plateau, I think if we did, maybe not a plateau per se, but a much smaller growth, right? More in line with like 2%, 3%, what it's basically been over the last couple of years. I think that's much more realistic. But even then, even if we do have a, say, 10% pullback, if we go back from 400 something million cigars to 380, that's still 60 million cigars more than we sold, 2019.
Exactly.
So I think, higher highs and lower low, or lower lows, or higher lows, sorry, higher lows and higher highs. I think that's going to be the next move. I think international markets, and I'd love to hear Jose's take on this, because from my talking to brand owners and factory owners, their international markets are now taking a huge chunk of their business, which is exciting. Primarily, and to kind of go back to what Jose mentioned with the wines, Cubans are becoming more and more like Grand Cru Burgundies, exceptionally expensive, hard to get, and you don't ever really know if it's going to be worth the price that you're paying for it. So I think that opens the field for a plethora of exceptional brands at all price points, from 10-15 euros that you can get all the way to what I would consider ultra high-end or luxury, right? 50 euros and above, 100 euros and above. So I think that new world manufacturers definitely have, this is the moment to kind of seize it. And obviously between new world, right, like non-Cuban cigars making a stand in Europe and again over the last decade, I think that's just going to increase, and Cuba is slowly, maybe not even slowly, maybe quicker than I expect, they're going to start losing market share to exceptionally produced cigars that always work, right? Always perform from a technical standpoint the way they should. They always draw, they always burn correctly, very, very rarely. I mean, I've smoked probably thousands of cigars a year. I can name the times I've had issues since the start of the year on the fingers of one hand. So I think the quality control is exceptional compared to the Habanos portfolio.
Well, that's good to hear in terms of the quality control and what you're experiencing. I think what's great and very interesting about today's show is that we can look at things from many different angles. I mean, Vlad, you take care of quite a few brands in the United States in a distributing role, so you are in very close contact with some of the most accomplished retailers in the US with the end consumer through your events, and of course also with the manufacturing side. Johann, a pendant to what you do here in Austria.
If I may, Reinhard, I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention one thing, and I would love to hear Jose's take on this. I think that there's more issues coming down the line, and I think there will be supply chain issues between the storm's impact over the last year, basically on multiple countries. Ecuador lost its entire crop last year, I believe, which would be 2025 when we're really going to use it. So I think the wrappers might be in shorter supply. Labor shortages in Nicaragua, Honduras. I don't know how much it's impacting DR, but I know Honduras and Nicaragua are impacted between people migrating or moving completely from the countries. There is a labor shortage. And then prices on the back end for actual tobacco supply has gone up. And I would love to hear what Jose has to, because he has quite more insight.
Listen, I gotta go back a little bit of what Vlad said before. If you look at the boom, look, the cigar world changed, whether you like Cigar Aficionado or not. Cigar Aficionado came before the cigars would be described, well, it's mild, medium, or full, it's big, small, or gigantic. That's what people used to talk. So Cigar Aficionado comes out with that. Cigars at that time, I think imports were like 50, 60, 70. But in 1997, the imports were 418 million. Next year, it went down by 24%. The following year, it went down by 23%. So we almost lost 50% of the imports in the next 2 years. Then 2000 started to come up. Okay, then 9/11 comes up, the shit hits the fan. So you got to look at the last year, the imports were 466 million. But what people don't understand, that the boom of 96, 97 was only a boom in America. Now you have a worldwide boom. And the other difference is that in the boom of 96 and 97, they were selling cigars for $12 that weren't worth 50 cents. If you see an article Cigar Aficionado did on me many, many years ago, I said, and people say, how can you say that? I said, well, because it's the truth. But going with Vlad said, look, we've seen already from about a year ago, companies cutting corners. We've seen, we never mentioned brands. We've had a lot of guest retailers on our show, media people, that said they've seen cigars loose, tight, canoeing, tunneling, side burning. Brands that were doing good, they still do good, but they've noticed certain problems. The crop in Ecuador was not totally lost, but it's around 70, 80%. But the problem is Ecuador has political problems, Nicaragua has political problems, Honduras has political problems. And you could see the prices of cigars and tobacco will go up. But when it's going to really start to be hard, it's third quarter of 2024. Because people give opinions and they don't think. I've heard people say, well, okay, we lost the crop, but then we'll have the crop next year. And I go, I don't tell them dummy, but how are you thinking? You got to wait a year to see if the crop grows. And then you got to wait minimum 1.5 to 2 years to use the tobacco. What people don't remember is that Ecuador in 2010, 2011 lost almost back-to-back crops. But what happened? And that time, we didn't have a boom and we didn't have a demand. So I've talked to a couple of people and I say, look out, because we always say the best is yet to come. I don't see it that way. I see a lot of problems. I see a lot of shortages, and I see a lot of companies taking shortcuts. And let me tell you something, that catches up with you at the end of the day.
Excellent point, Jose. I want to talk more about the manufacturing side with our guest Claudio in just a second. But before that, Johann, given all the introductory words from Vlad and Jose, what's your thoughts on this and your experience, in particular in regards to the quality control and what you see on the market currently? You are not only an exceptionally well-respected distributor of cigars here in Austria, but you're also super well connected in the international markets. You talk a lot to your distributor colleagues all across Europe and all around the world, pretty much. So what's your perspective on this and your thoughts with the finger on the pulse?
So what I see from the European side, I think it's a little bit different to the United States. Talking about Cuba, the Cuban situation, well, yes, there's a price raise. And I think the only brand they killed with it is Trinidad, because I can tell you from my retailers, when they can grab a box of Cohiba, it will be sold within 1 minute. It is a prestige product. Everybody wants it. Everybody buys it, no matter how much it costs. People are buying those cigars. As I said, Trinidad is dead. They killed it. The price for the other average Cuban cigars, it's now about 20 euros. People are willing to spend this money. The problem is really that we don't get any cigars from Cuba. The availability is the big problem. If they ship more, they will sell more. I'm 100% sure. When we're talking about cigars from 10 to 15 euros, there's the quality where people say, okay, I'm checking out for something different because I'm not willing to pay this money for a box of 25 where I can throw 5 away because they don't burn. But in general, if Cuba would ship, people will buy it. This is how I see it. I see an increase this year, again, from 20% compared to last year. And yes, this is the effect of the Cuban cigars, which are not available. On the other hand, when you do events, when you speak with people, I had an event 5 months ago in the Monte Cristo Cigar Club, where they were so proud that they only smoke Cuban cigars for 20 years. I made an event with 3 Dominican cigars. With one, I was a little bit cheating because it was the Ernesto Perez Carrillo Cor Majestic, which is 100% Nicaraguan cigar, made in the Dominican Republic. But there was a La Galera, the Imperial Jade, where 15 people said, if you take off the band, and you don't tell me what it is, I cannot say if it's a Cuban cigar or not. The second one was the Arturo Fuente Rosado Sangron, where they all were blasted about the flavors. And the third thing was the Picarillo, where 15 people said, I've never smoked a Nicaraguan cigar, and I'm not used to these flavors, but this is amazing. So they went the next day to buy those cigars. I think you just have to give them the opportunity in a safe room where all those prestige Cuban smokers have the chance to smoke something different. This is this point. About what you said in the beginning about the lawsuit we won. We have to be honest that we are here, or many of us which are here, we are in the industry. We are working on this. Our lives belongs on this industry. Our life, this win has a big impact in our jobs, in our life, in the things we love. Honestly, and I'm not talking again for Europe, I don't think that the average smoker, the average customer knows which problems we fight every day, which problems we have in the industry, which barriers we have to jump over every day from the different governments, local laws, EU laws, and there are some laws which are in each and every European country completely different. Taxation, rules, health warnings, everything. So the average smoker, he wants his cigar and he wants to enjoy it and he wants to smoke it. They don't know what's going on in the back. And I see people like my dear friend Mace shaking his head. We cannot expect from our customers, we should expect it from the retailers, that they know what's going on, but even them have no idea. And we have to teach them, and they have to teach their customers that this is something which is worth to fight for. So please, there might be an article in Cigar Aficionado, there might be an article in Cigar Journal, there might be an article online. You know, you make your heart, you click, I like it. Have they read it? I don't know. The thing is, teach the people, teach them what is important. It is important to fight for it. We're in a bubble. We know each other, we love each other, we respect each other, we work together. But I don't want to call it the inner circle, okay? This won't be right, because it would be something elitary. But we are dealing with all of this every day. But the consumer has no idea what's going on and how thin the line is of getting restrictions, of changes of laws, of rules. Here we are talking in Austria about forbid smoking in guest gardens within maybe 24, 25. Those are the problems they have, they see. And I don't think that they know that there would be an organization who would fight for their rights. We can communicate, talk, and teach.
So, Johann, can I know there's a European Cigar Rights Association, and Reinhard, you were one of the founding members, correct? Or you joined them? I'm not sure. I'm not part of it, right? I am 7,000 kilometers away.
3 gentlemen in here are members.
So can you engage with the government preemptively? Because
no, because this is the other big difference between the United States and Europe, that the people are more connected to their governments, to their local governments, to the local representatives. If you send them an email, if you send them a letter, at least you know that somebody will have a look at it. If you do this in Austria, in Europe.
So there's a beautiful little joke of sorts. During the schooling years here, one of the things that how a bill becomes the law, right? And there's even a little video. And then people have started changing that, where there's just a wad of cash this big that just gets handed to whoever needs to write it. And obviously lobbying in the United States is an industry on its own, probably much bigger than the cigar industry. But I'm surprised that, and again, I've lived in Europe for my first 25 years of my life. I'm surprised that as importers, you couldn't at least petition whoever's in charge of drafting the rules to at least have a sit down meeting and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Because ultimately, I think it comes down to lack of knowledge, because the government's uncaring ultimately, right? It's a machine. They're not going like, oh, we're going to destroy the cigar industry. No, they're trying to milk the cigarette industry, really, the tobacco industry, for taxation, right? It's the golden goose. And
correct.
Ultimately, I don't think they'll ever kill it, just because that taxation helps offset a lot of other things, right? It's billions of dollars.
You're absolutely correct. The big problem is, you said the separation between cigars and tobacco and non-tobacco. This would be the first and most important step, like this happened in the United States, I think. Yeah, this already happened. It didn't happen in Europe, and this is so. We have 29 countries, 29 countries.
Yes.
Each and every country is more or less fighting on its own. Brussels is doing whatever. But if you go to your local politician, I can tell you, I know a lot of politicians who smoke cigars, but never in public. You will see them in their private rooms. You would never, I can swear you, never find a politician, a European, Austrian politician smoking in front of a crowd a cigar. It has not the same status as in the US, where you celebrate with a cigar, you celebrate your wins in basketball, in baseball, whatever, the victory cigar. This is not part of the culture.
It used to be always an elite product, right? An elite sport, so to speak.
But if you think about the cigar history we have in Austria, our emperor was smoking Cuban cigars. They imported Cuban tobacco. There were cigars rolled all over Austria. Here's my friend from Italy. There are cigars rolled. In Germany, are cigars rolled. If you watch old movies from the 40s, German movies, they are smoking cigars like hell. I don't know, what's the name of that movie? A city is searching for a murder. The police officers in the whole room is full of cigar smoke. So also Germany, there is a tradition of smoking cigars. And those are cheap cigars, machine-made cigars. You have now companies like Schuster who makes premium cigars. They are somehow protected with tobacco tax if you compare it to other countries. Also, Italy has the tobacco tax. They try to protect the production of the Toscani cigars.
So, funnily enough, and this is what I was told when I was in Costa Rica. So, Costa Rica is a non-smoking country, right? You can't smoke in public or anywhere really. And it's funny because there's two cigar factories in there. So I've asked one of the owners, and I'm like, "Why is this? How this makes absolutely no sense." He goes, "Well, the EU, as part of their non-smoking, right, and the World Health Organization, they're basically trying to cut down on the smoking rates, and they're paying the Costa Rican government to impose these rules. So once or twice a year, they'll issue a fine for like $150, $200, whatever it is, for a smoking, and then they'll pay for billboards and stuff like that, and they get 20, 30 million a year just for that, which is kind of insane to be a cigar producing country. Again, not to the scale of Honduras, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic. But that to me is kind of insane and comes down to politics. I'm surprised that you can't really petition the government, but I understand it. It's different than here. When they were trying to get this tax in Nevada passed, they had a meeting with the governor and everybody else, and they petitioned, and basically they explained, hey, this is what we do. This is what the state is losing, because again, US is very different because each state has its own rules. And most states, apart from New Hampshire, impose a sales tax. So dating back to this old rule from, I want to say the 90s, basically how Amazon got away with not collecting sales tax up until, I believe, 2011, 2012, when states were starting to talk about collecting sales tax. Amazon just went to each state, gave them a pile of money that they were keeping aside as a war chest, and said, hey, going forward, if we go over, each state has a threshold. So for example, if you send into California, I believe it's $150,000. So if you send more than $150,000 worth of product, then you have to collect sales tax. But basically the way they presented it is, here are states that have imposed a cap. Here is the amount of revenue they have created. Here is the actual benefits between the sales tax and the tobacco tax that the state has profited from. So I'm surprised that you can't really, look, I mean, I'm not really surprised.
We're talking about my country, okay? We're 9 million people. There are around 8 companies importing tobacco products, which means cigarettes, cigars, everything. We don't have a representative in the Chamber of Commerce. The tobacco industry has in Austria no representative. So how can you go then? With whom can you talk? Why
is it is it the standard thing where nobody kind of wants to get together and say, hey, let's work together, make a bigger pie rather than fight over the same pie?
Hands off. Tobacco, hands off. They take millions of euros every month from us, as you said, with tobacco tax. And we have on cigars, we have 13% of the retail price, which is quite some money. But nobody cares about it. Nobody wants to talk with you because it's a tobacco product.
And ultimately, it's political suicide, basically.
There is one party which is pro-smoking, but the rest of the program, you have really well to decide if you want to vote for these people.
Gentlemen, if I may, apologies if I interrupt there for a second. I think to a certain extent we're preaching to the converted here. Johann, you said it perfectly. There's a lot of like inner circle people here, and people who are in love with the cigar industry and in love with the cigar culture in general. One of the biggest takeaways for us should be that we need to be more vocal, and we need to help other people learn about these things, and we need to provide education and insights and information to end consumers so that they also understand how challenging this whole landscape is and how big the threats are, right? And I think let's leave it at that for today, just when it comes to the regulatory aspects, because I want to talk about the beautiful sides of the industry as well, and about everything that's maybe of more interest to everybody joining us today. And I so much appreciate this conversation that we're having and all the very important points. But let's take one big conclusion for all of us today, and that is, let's be vocal about how important this is, and that people should get involved, that the consumer should get involved, and for really no money whatsoever, or just purchasing one little freedom sampler of the CRA, become part of this important cause and this important fight in order to support the industry and help all of us grow into a better future. With that, I want to welcome our dear friend and brother Claudio here on the panel. Claudio, it's such a privilege and pleasure to see you again. I know you have a busy travel schedule ahead of you as well, and an early flight tomorrow, but thanks so much for taking the time. And I want to start right away with your thoughts on the good side of things and the positive evolution of the industry in 2023. And then let's talk a little bit about the challenges that both Vlad and Jose have touched upon when it comes to issues on the growing side of things, what's happening with the climate and how does it affect the tobacco growing countries. And over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Reinhard. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I was a little bit late. My car broke down. So anyway, okay, you said the beautiful things, bad things, Cubans, no Cubans, new world, no new world. I want to start a little bit about Cubans, okay? Because it's been the history of cigars, if you want. Wrong. Because everybody thinks Cubans are the history of cigars. There is no way they can certify that. It is a Spanish cigar history, because the Spaniards brought tobacco into Cuba because there were no tobacco in Cuba. There were no manufacturers. It was La Tabacalera Real, the imported cigars. It was Catarina de' Medici, the first importing tobacco in Europe. So we should say, instead of no Cubans, no New World cigars, or I don't know, that's completely wrong, okay? And there is another thing, which is beautiful for me, okay? Because, not beautiful, I shouldn't say that. Cuba is completely broken. No, as a country, political, forget that. Cuba is done. It has been under hurricanes for 3 years back to back. They had the 2 fires that completely destroyed 80% of the tobacco stock. What do you think about Cubans? There is a new reborn of Cubans. They are Grand Cru Burgundy. Sorry, Vlada. We don't know each other, but I want to take some of the words because, sorry, I was late. No, Cuba is done. Doesn't exist anymore. Okay, they are invoicing the same amount of dollars. So you know why? Because they raised the prices, but they put down production at 35%, minus 40%. And now, Vlada, when you said they are going to be the Grand Cru Burgundy, okay? First of all, Grand Cru is in Bordeaux. I'm joking. And the most important thing, it is when you buy a Grand Cru, you know more or less what you buy, but you can enjoy that. A Cuban, even if it's a Grand Cru, it costs $70, you cannot enjoy that. Young tobacco, badly fermented, the draw is bad, they don't burn, keep it in the collection, don't even smoke them. Show to the friends, I have a beautiful collection of $1 million Cuban cigars, and then I put in the chimney, in the fireplace in your place. So I want to close a little bit the Cuban cigars, because the last thing, please teach everybody not to say extra Cuba, no Cubans, New World cigars. All are cigars, okay? And I can tell you more. Dominicans have been the first that they put the technique in fermentation and manufacturing and quality control at the highest level ever, starting in the 60s, when Cuba is still rolling a couple of Trinidad for the Comandante in the island, okay? They discovered the marketing. Marketing is the best thing ever to sell anything, okay? So don't talk anymore about Cuba. I want to talk about good things. Good things. Yes, there is a boom. The boom is going down, okay? Jose did a beautiful, analysis of the last decades, the era of cigar aficionado coming, then of course the boom, then of course, the coming into the markets strongly of Nicaragua, now the rise of Honduras, and now there is a problem. Okay, don't forget the one thing, trend. to be back to marketing. When there is a trend, okay, we follow the trend. Now, we can have collaterals. Governments, forget that. Everybody will smoke, always. We are going to have to deal with them, paying something a little bit more expensive. We are going to make always cigars, okay? Nicaragua is making 220 million cigars a year. Now, do you think, guys, that Nicaragua is going to make it 250 next year? Impossible, okay? First of all, on new smokers, that's already a problem, okay? I don't know, I'm basing it maybe too much into marketing, but it is a different analysis. Honduras has problems. It's okay. They are making 25% of cigars more than 3 years ago, okay? So trend, the COVID, now we are going down. We are going down because the trend, it is not that it's going down. There is a natural selection, of course, of manufacturers. Because during the COVID, everybody was sitting home, drinking, some whiskey and smoking cigars. Of course, I can smoke everything. I don't care. And you know why? Because I have the time, and there were a shortage in the very beginning. And everybody was panicking. Oh my God. I remember sweating and crying to understand how to get containers out of Nicaragua and to tell all the members of the tobacco chamber how to smuggle containers in Nicaragua. Okay, 2020 has been a record year for Nicaragua. We are just like, if we keep going like this is like impossible to understand. Yes, impossible not to understand, but to be consistent and always, it's not sustainable. Okay, back to the natural selection. All the chinchales. Maybe Jose knows what's a chinchale, but in Nicaragua, the chinchale are the little artisan here and there, fake cigars or bad factories, small factories in the patio, in the garage. People that they don't really know about. Why all this? Because the million of cigars are requested by the biggest market on the planet. So everybody was making cigars, okay? Out of 150 factories in Nicaragua, there are going to be maybe 60 in 5 years. You know why? Because of the chinchale got the 50,000 cigars order. Oh my God, bring guys, make cigars, ship the cigars, cigars are sold. Second order, and we are down in 2021. Third order, 2022, boom, done, no more orders. Cigars are not so good, let's say. So there is a natural selection into the boom of manufacturers because everybody waking up, Nicaragua, Honduras, I think even in the Dominican Republic, Jose, right? Many people said, okay, let's make cigars. Everybody wants cigars. Those guys are gone. And if they are not gone, they are going to be gone within 2-3 years. Now, during the 2-3 years, you're going to see the big guys always stronger and stronger. Why? They don't lose the focus in production, okay? They don't lose the focus in production. They are always at the highest level of quality. You can say Ecuador. Oh my God, the crop in Ecuador. Do you think a factory that makes 20, 25, 30 million cigars a year is in shortage of wrappers from Ecuador? Yes, wrappers for the next 10 years. And especially wrappers, not only filler, but especially wrappers. So if it's missing 1,000 bales, 3,000 bales of purchase from Ecuador, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's going to wait because that crop is going to be bad and very expensive. Because of course, who makes tobacco gotta get money. But these guys are organized. That's why they are still there and they are going to be there. So chinchales, they're going to be gone. Markets. Trend is trend, guys. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, okay? Let's get back to education and all those things. Yes, it is true in the cigar industry, in the cigar culture, our fault, as Jose Blanco said once 10 years ago. He said that the wine industry did a spectacular job during 30 years. We are just starting. That's why we speak no Cubans, and this and that. That's why. Now, there is a trend in the young people I was reading some article the other week. Young people, we cannot call them hipsters anymore. It's already past. So I don't know how to call them these days. I don't want to get into those things, okay, especially in the United States. Let's call them young people. They are drinking less. Okay, there is some hysteria right now between beers, between whiskeys and this and that, because they are drinking a lot less. They drink like 30% to 35% less of the generation in the 70s and the 80s. You know what they do? They drink less, they drink better. So there's going to be a switch in the market with the new generation entering in the cigar market, not about price, because they are young. So the price is not going to be the main factor to choose a cigar. It's going to be the country, it's going to be the brand, it's going to be the quality, it's going to be the education can give the retailer. So if you take, we can close the loop there. So we had the trend that now is changing, but by the way, we had time to smoke during COVID. We still have time, okay? Instead of smoking 3 cigars a week, we're smoking 1 cigar a week. But maybe when I smoke a cigar a week, instead of spending $30 in 3 cigars, I spend $25 in 1. So there is still a consumption of cigars. And by the way, there is a reason why, and I laugh because I'm happy to see that, 500 years that we are beside the smoke, we are going to smoke, always. The human being has been engineered to drink, to smoke, to fight, unfortunately, okay, and to die. So there is the 4 jobs: lawyers, tobacco, alcohol, and then what else? Other couple of jobs that they are one of the oldest, but they're going to be always there, okay? So don't panic because Ecuador lost the crop, because Nicaragua is a dictator, because I didn't say that. It was an example, a random example, okay? You know, politics, very short, and I make it funny, Reina. Politics. Oh boy, I have a political sciences background, so I could stay a couple hours talking about that. There is, as you said, a huge difference. I think Johann said that. The United States, I can call my senator. I can call my representative. I can call my governor of the state, and he has the obligation to receive me. You know why it happens? Not only because of the constitution of the system, because the people, they raise the voice and they say, hey, I voted for you, you work for me. In Europe, since 250 years, we don't do that. Why? Because I'm Italian.
Maybe the French. Maybe the French.
Yeah, I'm Italian. My representative, il mio onorevole a Roma. No. His salary is paid by the taxes of my family, because I live in the United States, I don't pay taxes in Italy, okay? So they should have the obligation. We never said that. So we lost that right. When all this shortly FDA, I was the first one in 2016 when everything started. I said, guys, no worries. It's going to be long. It's going to be painful, but it's not going to change the world because of Constitution and the people in the United States. Look at what happened there, because everybody raised their voice and boom, done. The country that is going to have a lot of problems, I miei compatrioti in Europe. Track and trace and blah, blah, blah. But it's not problem of the countries. It is problem of the European Union that few countries wanted to have. I don't want to get into that, okay? Because there is now a common, let's call it common policy about tobacco in the entire Europe, okay? Unfortunately now is twice complicated. Not only your own country registration, distribution, but now if you are not appointed to the big boss in Brussels, you cannot deal in your country. And we lost that in the last 15 years because nobody raised the voice. Now, there is a beautiful association. Europe, unfortunately, they cannot do what the Cigar Rights of America and the other PCA, they do in the United States, okay? there is another thing, and I leave to you guys with the last thing. Vlada, you are very informed, very well. I don't know you. We should have a cigar and a coffee sometime, a day together, because he said the WHO. Okay, beautiful example, but it's even worse than that, because it's not only given money for advertising against tobacco. You smoke a cigarette, you die after 5 minutes with a cancer that explodes your head. That's the WHO. But it's more vicious than that. It's giving money to the country to change the crop from tobacco into other kind of cultures. So it's going to cut not the cigarettes, it's going to cut the raw material to make cigarettes. That's vicious. It's very vicious. I've been, witnessing a beautiful meeting, okay, at the level with some vice president of labor, president of lay minister, and blah, 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 different countries, okay? There's a T5 in Africa, the 5 biggest tobacco producer in Africa. They made a block, okay? They didn't sign the WHO document to help countries to change tobacco culture. Boom, take this. Is Africa the third world? No, they are ahead of everybody, even the politicians, because they thought, you are going to buy my country, WHO, with 10, 15, $20 million when tobacco gives jobs to 250 million people in my country, and they are not starving anymore because of tobacco? Well done. They didn't sign. What we were doing is kind of forming a T4, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras, Cuba. I've been in contact with Dominican Republic. Everything was sent to the Minister of Labor and Industry. Dominican Republic right now, guys, is the best country about politics against tobacco, because they are not against tobacco. The vice president of the country, she's the daughter of a tobacco grower. So Jose Blanco will laugh for the next 10 years because they are good there, okay? Nicaragua. Poor guys. There is a dictator. Everything is tough there. Everybody's leaving. Yes, we are still making 220 million cigars a year. Can you explain that out? I could, but I won't. Because there is a lot of work behind the scenes. And we made sure, sorry, one second. Sorry. And we made sure that the tobacco industry wasn't touched by whatever happened. Now it is true. It is true that 5% of the population left Nicaragua last year. 300,000 people on a population of 6%. That's scary. But when we had the problem of employees in the cigar factories, when the boom was so high that even though with the double of workers inside the factory, we couldn't keep up with production. And now, fortunately, the immigration, okay, is slowing down. Some of the chinchales are closed, and there is already a market for workers to go to cigar factories. There is people that can work again in cigar factories. I want to finish with the last thought, very, very short. I love my position right now because I'm not linked or a brand or something. I have a beautiful outsider. No, I'm an insider, but outside the view of the industry. And I still see a lot of beautiful things happening in the cigar industry. The problem is the limit of the production side, okay, with the distribution side. Unfortunately, there is a barrier that we cannot cross because we are manufacturers, we are producers. We make tobacco, we make cigars. So all the politics, problems, distribution, track and trace, monopoly of state, and all those things, we can help more, of course, but we gotta make sure that people have cigars to smoke as they are today, that since 3 years, okay? I mean, I should say this year, the quality went a little bit down. I shouldn't take it this year, okay? But in the last 3 years, has been at the highest level. The best cigars you could smoke today are from the last 5 to 10 years to these days. Thank you.
Wow, Claudio, what a sermon, man! I'm speechless. Vlad, I'll let you take the first answer in that.
It's okay. It's okay.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback off what he mentioned with wine, and correct. The younger generations are typically consuming less alcohol, but they're consuming higher quality. That's correct. Also, I think that the spirits industry is probably 30 years ahead of us in terms of everything.
Even more, Vlada, even more, I think. Even more.
Probably.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
And I would say the wine industry is probably 20 to 30 years ahead of us as well.
Yeah.
And with the new generations, rather than just be brand loyal, which is, I'll make a bigger comparison. If you only drank Bud Light, maybe not with the recent controversy, but if you drink Bud Light, that's all you drink. That's it. You're a Bud Light drinker. Yeah. Younger generations typically explore, and nowhere is this more apparent than in the wine world, where 10 years ago, you could buy Premier Cru Beaujolais for about $7 to $12, depending on the producer.
Yeah.
And there was maybe 7, 8 people, with me included, that cared about it. At this point, you have Grand or you have Cru Beaujolais selling for $30, $50, $70 retail, which is insane because 10 years ago, nobody cared about it. And then you have Greek wines, you have stuff from Canary Islands, you have Sicily exporting more and more. You have all of these up and coming emerging regions, as they were called, now coming into the forefront because younger generations are more open to exploration. And I always joke, I don't want someone to just smoke all the brands that I distribute. I want them to put it in a rotation because that's what I see from the younger consumers.
That's a beautiful example. And sorry to cut you because I want
go, please.
Very, very short. Because when you take the example of the French wine, I learned to drink wine in France. I lived for a long time between the south of France, Paris, and then the Switzerland, the Swiss part, Geneva, speaking French. I learned there, okay? French, they are the best in marketing. They are just the best. They make great wines, spectacular wines, but this doesn't end there. French, they know how to sell wine. They have been the first one exporting wine, even though Italy for 25 years is the first producer of wine. You said Sicily. I'm from Sicily. So there is a big change there in the wine, okay? So I could say, don't drink the Grand Cru Classé, drink a Super Tuscany, okay? But that's the taste, but the trend. When you were saying the new generation, take the bourbon. The last 10 years, oh my God. Okay, the bourbon was the hillbilly drink or the redneck. I'm not saying bad words. For me, I love that. I love the people living in those countries. It was everybody drinking bourbon. Finally, we got the bourbon back. So much BS in the industry. Now the people is back to 4 Roses. Okay, look at the beer industry. Hipsters, they invented the craft beer. It wasn't the beer industry. Okay, it was the hipster. They said we want to have something boutique. In the craft beer, we cannot drink Budweiser. That's nasty. Let's drink something custom made for us. Okay, the entire craft beer movement was born. Where is it now? Why nobody's talking anymore about the craft beer movement? Because the guys are back to drink a Heineken and Stella Artois. And they drink an IPA custom made by a microbrewery once a week. So you're right. You went from 5% to 15%. The big guys were scary, and they started buying, flat tire, Belgium or whatever. They bought Lagunitas in California. They bought big guys. Okay, they bought all the craft beer just to put under the ground and having the people back drinking a Stella Artois.
Absolutely, and that's kind of right. The craft beer industry basically grew up. It became a big percentage of the overall industry. And then the big guys came with a giant sack of money with a Sharpie dollar sign and said, hey, here's 10x of what you're selling. We'll take it from here.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the dream, right? For someone who started making beer in their garage 15 years ago.
Back to cigars. The cigars made like those guys that they have the plastic buckets to make beer. Those are the chinchales. Those are the chinchales of the beers, and we had so many chinchales in the cigar industry. They're gone, fortunately and finally.
100%. And the beer industry has kind of evolved a lot faster than the wine industry in a sense, because a couple of reasons, right? It's much quicker to make beer. You don't need to wait for a year and then ferment it, age it, all this stuff. And you can experiment, right? It isn't really set in stone what you can do. You can add peaches, you can add raspberries. There's 700 different styles that you can choose from, and people enjoy that. And the craft beer, I mean, Vegas alone probably has like 5 or 6 craft breweries.
Yeah. It's the best example in cigars of all of that.
Yeah.
Who's that? Because I can say a brand. I'm not working for any brand, and I do not have a brand. Who's the guy that changed the trend of cigars in the last 30 years? Not the guy, the brand. Come on, guys.
La Flor Dominicana.
I would go the other way. Drew Estate. I would go with Drew Estate.
Drew Estate, starting the trend of having those, at that time, hipsters, I should say more rappers, hipster, or whatever, okay, to go from blend into cigars. Because yes, we can say that. From blends, okay, that we know what those are, or if you don't know, go online, BLUNT, and they started smoking cigars. But how? Because they were flavored, they were cheap, they were, engaging as colors, branding. So they did something that nobody at that level did before, to have a new cigar smokers. And they made, I can say, millions of cigar smokers. Now, they are smart because they kept them, okay? But they created a new generation of cigar smokers. And for me, when we say craft beer and those things, I think Drew Estate in cigars. Spectacular job, okay? Took Jose Blanco, Arturo Fuente. Arturo Fuente went to a level that is unimaginable these days, okay? That it was the classic old school family. Look at what they are doing these days, okay? I can have other examples as well, many others. But even the classics, they turn into a new generation of cigars without losing their culture, their quality, and without losing the focus on making things that they are not owned by them. Okay, so this is a beautiful conversation about this, but again, expect a curve going down, and I can say I'm seeing less orders in Nicaragua right now. Okay, since the beginning of the year, production is still high, but it went down a little bit. I should say that because there is this trend that is changing. Now, if it goes down, I hope it changes very fast to get back. But it's always difficult to have a boom and to maintain those numbers. Naturally, there gotta be a curve going down and then again up in a few years. But I think it's not gonna be a bad year this year. I think maybe next year is gonna be the biggest natural selection, okay? And then back to normality.
Jose, I see you're biting your tongue. Please chime in.
No.
To hear your thoughts.
No, I'm just fascinated listening to Claudio and Vlad. They went from cigars to beers to wine. Fascinating. But it's true. I told Claudio many years ago, I've been saying it for more than 35 years. The companies look more at the bottom line of sales revenue, which is important. The wine industry is not 20 years ahead of us. It's not 30 years ahead of us. It's 50 years ahead of us. While we have 7 or 8 good publications of cigars, because there's a lot of crappy ones out there, the wine industry has more DVDs than the Beatles put together, and books and courses. I mean, I've been training people for the last 25, 30 years, but I'm a one-man show. And I always tell people in the companies that I work with that have given me support, whether it was La Aurora or Hoya or Ernesto and Carlito, that we need to have education. The more educated the consumer is, it's better for the retailer. The more educated the retailer is, it's better for him to interact with his salesman. The better educated the distributor is, it's better for him to deal with his consumers, but his retailers, but also with the company that he's working. So we sometimes put efforts on marketing, which is important, a great sales team, but you have to educate. Because unfortunately, and I don't mention, we have so many wannabes out there giving opinions and writing things that have never left an office. Some of them have never been in a cigar shop because they buy online. And then they're out there writing and evaluating cigars with not even a clue of what tobacco, blending, fermentation, curing is all about. And that's why I get a whole bunch of invitations. I do like 5 or 6 people because I know they've been in Nicaragua, they've been in Dominican, they research. But you have all these people talking, and I mean, it blows my mind. What really blows my mind is when I read a press release or somebody on their Facebook that says, oh, we went down to Nicaragua, Honduras, or Dominican and Nicaragua, and we got a blend made in 3 days. Man, when I used to blend, it used to take me 7, 8 months just on a regular one. Some of the greatest blends I've made took me over 1.5 years. So, you know, I don't say anything, but I just laugh to myself and say, or, you know, people like me, Carlito, and Neto, we're the dumbest people in the world. You guys are the smartest people in the world. That is all BS. And the other thing is, I don't know if it was Vlad, I think Vlad and Claudio both said it. The new generation, when it comes to liquor, they ain't drinking Captain Morgan. They're not drinking Budweiser or Miller and that stuff. They'd rather pay $1 more for a good beer or $20 more for a good bottle of liquor. Why? Because the impact of social media and the education that they have heard from a lot of people have changed their mindsets. So instead of going out and buying a bottle of rum that's $7, they'd rather go and, let's say, pay $38 for a Zacapa, or pay, I don't know, $26 for a Barcelona Imperial, or maybe pay $50 for a 20-year-old, the 20th plantation. But things have changed, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize the changes that we've had on wine, on bourbon, on whiskey, and on cigars. It's a new ball game. And you know, you see people coming out with a cigar that's $75, and I go like, I wish them luck, because people will buy the cigar for $75, but it has to smoke like a $75 cigar. There's people that go to a store looking for that $4 bundle, but they want the best cigar bundle for $4. So people today are more educated and they know more about cigars. That's my 2 cents.
Amen. Mace, over to you.
Wow. Not even sure where to jump in here, Reinhard. It's a great night when you got all the masters of the industry here. So it's absolutely amazing seeing everybody here, and it's great listening to you guys. And I guess it's interesting, as Johann said earlier. You've got the inside clique, you got the insiders, you got lots of us. I'm not in the industry, but a lot of my friends are in the industry, yourselves, you know, so I probably know more than the average smoker. And it circles back around, I guess, my question. And, you know, we're kind of here reviewing the year that's gone by. We're looking at what's worked, what hasn't worked, and how do we move into a new way of making things work even better, right? So we've got the regulations and the legislations that are different here in Europe, country by country. It's all different. There's a huge battle that isn't the same as the US. This is great. I'm just trying to figure out from the perspective of the piece on education, when we say education, what do we mean by that? And I guess I have an example. So something that I've seen, which has been a phenomenal boom over the last 2-3 years, especially in the post-COVID world here in the UK, is we're seeing a lot more of the manufacturers coming out here. They're doing tours around the cigar lounges. Love it. People are turning up. You got regulars. I travel 4 or 5 hours to go up to Ray's shop and sit down and listen to James Brown and to everybody else from the industry doing their shows. And when I look at education, that's one aspect of it. But I think the piece on education that's missing is when all these shows are taking place across Europe, especially where I am, there's never the talk around what can people do. So you imagine 30, 40 people turn up to an event. It's all about listening to that manufacturer, smoking the smokes, having a drink, a pairing with it. It's great. But for me, the thing that I think is lacking when I look at everything is there's never a time or a session where it's like, guys, this is great. We love that you guys are in this industry and you're smoking these cigars. You're trying it. You're not stuck with one brand, with one country. Forget the borders. But there are serious issues that we need your support in. And I think that message doesn't get conveyed often enough. Hence why you have people who are smoking, everyday smokers, they're very lackadaisical. They're like, I want the cigar, I got some money, I'm gonna go and spend on it. But the thing that's missing from all these great events that are taking place, the message in that face-to-face event has to be driven home. That listen, you sitting here having this smoke, it's through some serious hardship from people in the industry, people across the borders, across the sea, are fighting for your right to smoke the cigar. Oh, what do you mean? That education starts. Right now, that education is not there. People go to events, they smoke, they enjoy, they know more about the manufacturer, the country, the wrapper, the binder, everything. They know it in and out, but they don't actually have that missing link that, listen, if you don't fight for this in a year's time, it might be more difficult for you to know what you're smoking because the band's going to be covered up. It's going to be more difficult for you to get hands on these. And I think that for me, if I was going to say a message to just how we do things, it's the education's got to start in these events, in these face-to-face opportunities. From there, of course, there's more that even I could do from a social media perspective, talking about the great associations here in Europe, being a member, getting that message out there. But I think from an education piece, there's more that we can definitely do just to, you got somebody there, they love your brand, they love your smoke. Tell them about how difficult it is to get that smoke out there, because that's what's missing right now. That education is just non-existent. And I think that's the message that I would say is, from an industry perspective, distributor, manufacturer, when you got that ear of that public, yeah, they want to hear about the good times and how much goes into the blending and how long it takes to get that cigar. But actually, you know what? They'd be just as interested to understand how difficult it is, because I can convey that message to my friends, people who want to start smoking. I tell them, oh yeah, try this, great. But by the way, you know that there's some real issues. What do you mean? We're banded in with cigarettes. Oh, what does that mean? And we have a conversation. We roll onto it. They understand that there's a real battle. They're wondering, well, why are cigars banded in with cigarettes? They're different things. So I think that for me is just my parting message, would just be get that message out there and just really educate people on just what the hardships are, because that's how we can then, especially here in Europe, we can start fighting more for it.
Jose, I believe you wanted to answer to that or chime in.
Yes, Macy made an excellent point. What's really sad that during my last 25 years, Macy never went to one of my events, because when I go in, the last thing that I do, I talk about the brand, but more than anything else, in all my seminars, it's the educational part, the 6 elements that a blend needs, the misconceptions that people have when they see a cigar with a dark wrapper. The simplest thing is people tend to confuse flavor with strength. You can have a mild cigar that's full flavor, and you can have a cigar that's strength. And I talk about curing and fermentation, and I give the consumers tips, and I give the retailers tips, and the media people there. I've done seminars where I've had 4 people from 4 competitors ask me to be able to sit in. But the problem, Macy, is, and everybody knows it, every person in the industry has their own agenda. My agenda, of course, was to blend cigars, sell cigars, But what has been the strongest that I've done for the last 25 years is education, 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 education. Why? Because I've been the first critic at Pro Cigar in our meetings when I used to live in DR, that we focus more on selling the brand, and we don't sell enough the country, and we don't sell enough the educational part. And to be honest, not tooting my horn, there's very few people that have done it. Hanky did it for some years, Benji Menendez did it for some years, but I don't think anybody has done like close to 3,000 seminars like I've done in the last 25 years. And that's a lot.
I fully agree, Jose. That is definitely something that is missing. I've been to enough events with enough manufacturers and distributors, and it's that final piece. I'm going to call it the missing link. The missing link is great. I know all about your family. I know your great grandfather, and I know how the farm has been developed and everything, and the leaves and how you guys go through your aging process. But that missing link is understanding, for us to get this product to you, we are jumping through hoops, government bureaucracy that is sometimes mostly unnecessary. And I think that missing link is what hopefully more the industry, if there's a takeaway from the year, it's great. There's more shows, more events, more FaceTime with the consumer, but actually get the consumer up to date on what the heck is going on, because most people just are so ignorant. They have no understanding of what the fight is like to get these cigars out there. So yeah, I fully agree.
Amen. Nice. What a great comment and great point that you made. Thanks for chiming in on that. And thanks for sharing. I would love to go into our final round and get a closing statement from all of our panelists. And Vlad, I would love to start with you. I saw that you had your hands up, so please include whatever thought you had into your closing statement. But for us to wrap up, please chime in and share your thoughts and perspectives as to what do you see for the remainder of the year, and as a little positive note and takeaway for all of us, or call to action, based on what we discussed, what can we all try to do better, chiming in just a little bit here and there to take the industry a step further and do exactly what Mace said, is to help everybody to better understand, to learn and to grow, and help the industry on a beautiful and positive path forward. Vlad.
I want to agree with Jose 110% that education is key, and we all, as retailers, consumers, manufacturers, everybody in the chain, should continuously invest more and more efforts into that, because we're not all fighting for this piece of a pie, because we can build a bigger pie. There's only about, I believe, 2% is the number, that 1.2 to 2%, right, with 1% margin of error, of people who enjoy premium cigars in the States. So if we can grow that by 0.1% a year, that will be massive. And then getting people involved with, I think I've built this little tasting introductory kind of thing with a number of boutique brands, like 4 or 5 friends that I have, where we would work with retailers locally, and we would all take time to basically introduce new consumers, people who have never smoked a cigar or never had a great experience, right? Nobody ever told them, hey, try the cigar, don't puff on it like a cigarette every 15 seconds. Maybe they didn't have a good experience. Maybe they had a nicotine buzz, right? Maybe their first experience wasn't as phenomenal as it should have been. So I think that should be the key. Unfortunately, I put it all together in March of 2020, and we all know how that went. But absolutely, I think education is key. And I think if we all collectively put the effort in, it can only get better from here. As far as what the rest of the year is going to bring, I think there's a very bright period ahead, right? The holidays are coming up, and as long as the economy in the States doesn't tank too bad, we should be okay. I'm interested to see how moving PCA from July to March is going to impact the buying patterns from a couple of different reasons, primarily because there's TP in January, there's Puro Sabor in January, there's Habanos Festival, there's Pro Cigar in February, then it's TP, or then it's PCA, and then you have the Dream Machine, which is TAA. I'm interested to see how that's going to impact both the buying patterns, the production schedules. We've already adjusted as soon as we knew they were changing changing the timeline for PCA. So we already adjusted, but I'm interested to see how that's going to work out, because having the TAA and PCA and to an extent TP basically back to back within the same quarter is going to impact those buying patterns. And I'm interested if Jose could actually touch upon that, because he's closer to the manufacturing side than I am. But I'm interested to see how that's going to really, I think that will change the overall impact, release schedule, all kinds of things. And as it stands now, it's kind of an unknown thing. So we kind of took a best guess as to how it's going to impact. But yeah, that's it. I mean, education. Oh, and I hope DDA actually sees this. I have suggested his book, From Soil to Soul, to, at this point, probably over 100 people. I think it is one of the best, if not the best, cigar book ever written. And if you don't have it, you owe it to yourself to get it. If you read that, you will know more than probably anybody that's not involved directly within the industry, right? Whether it's managing factories, sourcing tobacco, blending, et cetera, et cetera. I would make that comparison to the Wine Bible from Karen McNeil, which I always suggest for wine lovers as kind of like an entry book that is very approachable. And DDA does, it's Soil to Soul, Mike. I believe he ships it out of Europe. I don't know if he actually figured out someone to have it shipped from the States. From Soil to Soul by Didier Juvenal, the book is incredible. It comes in two parts, one that is mostly history and the technical side of growing things. It is very approachable, requires, an eighth grade education to understand how certain mineral components and things like that impact the final product, right? The tobacco, which will give you a newfound appreciation for what it is, because we often forget that it is an agricultural crop. It is something that's of the earth, and obviously kissed by the sun and rain and everything else, and then touched by human hands. But we do forget that it's an artisanal agricultural product. So the second book is primarily focused on tasting, which for everybody here, I think will give them an immense appreciation for every cigar they're going to enjoy over, their lifetime. So with that, I'll leave it to Johann and Jose.
Thank you very much, Vlad. Since you asked for Jose's opinion, let's continue with Jose and his closing remarks, please.
Listen, the way I see it, because of labor, especially in Nicaragua, a lot of people living unrest in Honduras. In Dominican, thank God, the political situation is stable. We don't have, no company has enough rollers. But talking about the PCA, let me tell you something. The guy that goes to Puro Sabor Pro Cigar, maybe 10 or 12 people go to the PCA. That is the truth. Now, for years when I was on the advisory committee and it was RTDA at that time, I always wanted the convention, the show, to be in February or March or even April, because a lot of people, especially in the Northeast, going from the East to the West, that month of July is one of their best months. Sometimes when it's at the end of June. So the way I see it, and we're gonna see, we all have different kinds of bets made with it. You will see people going to the PCA that have never been there, and you'll see people that haven't been there for years, because it's in March. In Boston, it's going to be called. In Chicago, it's going to be called. In Indiana, it's going to be called. All the East Coast is going to be called. But also, this is something I think if manufacturers do it right, remember that you go to the show in July and you put an order for X company, new brand, oh my God, give me 5 of this, 5 of this, 5 of this, 5 of this. They tell you it's going to ship in September. It doesn't arrive in October. It doesn't arrive in November. December went through, and when you're out of money, that shipment comes in for $3,000 first week of January, you're going to return it back. So what I'm saying is that now the companies have the opportunity to start to work on things, present them in March, and at least try to get them out at least end of August, end of September. Regarding how the numbers are going to be, I got a couple of bets that I think I'm going to lose one, because at the beginning of the year, I said we would not import, we would import less than 435 million. It seems it might go over 435, but it's just a bottle of scotch to a good friend, which as soon as I give it to him, I'm going to open it up because I got to get something back out of it. So other than that, what worries me is lack of rollers, quality on a lot of brands, and also the economical situation. And plus, if this shit show with the politics continues in the States, things could get messy. So we'll see. We just have to pray for the best.
Johann.
Well, from the European point of view, this change from July to March is the best thing that could happen for us. Spoke with a lot of my friends. Time gap between March and September, I mean, those are the two most important shows in the industry. PCA and Intertabak, for us, definitely much better. And I think you will see much more Europeans next year in Vegas for 100%. As I said before, for me, or what I see in my country is that the sales are going up on cigars. I think a lot of young people are starting smoking cigars. Try it. It's all connected with spirits, wine, beer, what we spoke before. Switching from cigarettes, or people who never smoked before a cigar. I mean, Jose knows my club above and also Mace know the club above my office. We gained 10 new members this year. So the interest for cigars is definitely there, and I think it will grow. All the problems Jose mentioned with production, labor, again, those are internal problems where I don't think the average smoker honestly is interested to hear that. He wants his cigars. And the best thing is try to get in what is possible and to deliver the quality you offer us. And the educational part, Mace, thank you for that input. I mean, you had been on two of my events. I never thought, I think you were, so when you speak, maybe you're afraid to bother people with things like that, but it is important, as you said, and it's the most important thing that you tell them. And don't have the feeling for yourself, maybe this is boring, maybe you're not interested at how difficult it is to get cigars into the market. But when I speak with retailers, they get ears like this. Okay, so really that difficult? Do you have really all this bureaucracy? And yes, this is how it is. So maybe tell the customer what you have in your hands is difficult. There are a lot of problems we have to fight for. And thank you for that input. Really, I really appreciate that. In general, if you look at all what's going on, WhatsApp, Instagram, all this information people get, it's growing, it's growing. When I go on my Instagram, I think I have 5-10 new people every day, which do something with cigars or smoke, connect with them, and yeah, looking forward. And the economic situation, Jose, well, I mean, we have the shit show in Russia. You know the inflation rates in Europe. But as I said, there are still people which are out there who are willing to spend, I don't know, $3,000, 3,000 euros on a box of Guiva, or on a box of Fuente. I mean, I think there is still money out there in the market which need to be spent. Hopefully on cigars and not on wine, liquors, and stuff like this. Thank you.
Jose, go for it. Go for it.
Claudio, you have the final word, my friend. Take it away after your beautiful speech.
Yeah. Very happy because Dortmund is in a few days. So I'm gonna leave tomorrow. I have some stuff to finish in France. Then I will be in Germany, seeing the beautiful community and family of cigars that I like a lot, that is growing a lot in Germany. I think the trade show deserved to have a more and more presence of, cigar manufacturers there. And then looking forward the last rush for the toward the end of the year about sales, import brands, and I think next year is gonna be a big year for new releases and new brands and new stuff, because FDA said, we are not going to touch cigars. So you are going to see that wave of new guys. Jose is already laughing because he knows that. He's going to be like a big time. Of course, let's see who's going to stay, who is going to leave the market. And then, yes, Vlada said it's going to be a very, very busy beginning of the year. Starting very early, Puro Sabor, and then festival in Dominican Republic, Cuba. It's going to be a very busy season, but finally the PCA is early during the year. When I was there with my brand and other things, it was impossible, to make some good business in August. Because, of course, the timing and all the stuff, the big guys, of course, they have a bigger sales. So it was, I think, a bad timing. And the last word, finally, next year I can visit New Orleans, not in August, because I've been there so many times in August, dying outside, and I love New Orleans. Finally, I can enjoy the city as well and not dying outside.
Thank you very much, Claudio.
Reinhard, can I say one last thing?
Yes, please.
It crossed my mind, and Claudio saw me laughing, because I got to say this. The next 2 days after the ruling, I swear to God that more than 10 or 12 people called me, people that I knew and people that were recommended by somebody, to see who I could get them to make cigars. There was a guy that told me, I know his friend, he's a lawyer. He said, we have $1 million and we want to buy cigars. Who can make them? I said, there's nobody. And it's true. Everybody thinks the ruling now is like a freeway to start making brands and cigars. And that is even makes the industry even more dangerous, because people will start making shit again. That's my 2 cents. Thanks for having me, Reinhard.
Jose, thank you so
Guys,
much for the
I have to leave. Thank you, Reinhard. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claudio Sgroi, Johann Gallee, Jose Blanco, and of course, Vlad joining us from Las Vegas. Thank you very much for all your time. Thanks for the insights. What a tremendous show. Very exciting and very, very inspiring and interesting. Stay tuned. Next week is Into Tobacco time. I hope to see a lot of you folks in Dortmund. And of course, we will be live on Wednesday before the show. So next week, same time, same station. We'll see you all there with Pinel at Pinel, an interesting accessory show coming up. And until then, all the very best. Light them up, and thanks for tonight.
Good night.
Bye,
Good night.
guys.
Glad
Have a
to
great
see
day.
everybody.